Hey, welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broaden our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual, I am here with Jason.
Hey, everyone. I'm back.
Welcome back to the land of the living.
Did you miss me?
I missed you.
But there was no one to talk back to you or disagree with you.
Yes, and that's why I said that Death Forest was only an okay movie, but I had a good time.
That's good. I'm glad.
Thanks, everyone that tuned in to my J-Horror Journal.
J-Horror Jerk-Off.
Yeah, you could call it that too as well. I also spoke... I don't know if you even listened to that episode or not, because I don't know. But,
I haven't finished it. I'm sorry.
I spoke into existence...
It has been a week.
I spoke into existence your version the next time I'm sick, which is Jason's TV movie guide.
Oh, yes.
So you have to do TV movies by yourself.
Okay. I'm down for that.
That's the way it's going to be.
Sounds good.
So we are back in action. We're back picking up right where we were. We're going to talk about Heroic Purgatory from 1970, directed by Yoshida, also sometimes known as Kiju Yoshida. If you happen to get to Googling and looking for this guy. Weird movie. Just going to put that out at the front.
Yes, I have some thoughts on it.
Weird movie,
we'll get into that.
Guard movie.
Very avant-garde.
Challenging movie, I'm going to say. You just take a long...
Frustrating movie?
Maybe. Would you say it was an exhausting movie, perhaps?
Yeah,
okay.
I would.
Interesting. Well, we'll get into all of that in a bit.
There's that motherfucking fly.
Oh, goddamn. Okay.
Huh. You're gonna hear it in a minute, folks. It's gonna be going getting in my face.
We'll see what happens.
All right.
But we're gonna do all our usual stuff. Talk about what we've been watching. Get into a little of this, a little of that. But first, we are part of the...
That's staying in.
But first, we are part of the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, and we love it. And there's all these other cool shows you could go be listening to. And ideally hosted by people that won't botch the ad for the network like I just did.
Or at least not leave it in like I'm going to.
But yeah, go check those out. Go give them some love. There's all kinds of stuff you could be getting into.
Yeah.
And speaking of shout-outs and stuff like that, I also want to give a shout-out to Erica from Unsung Horrors.
Yes.
If you've checked on social media, we already posted about it ourselves, but to share it in episode for our non-social media related people, her book, The Sweetest Taboo, An Unapologetic Guide to Child Kills in Film, is out.
Yep.
Now, this was crowdfunded. We talked about it last year when that was going on. The book's out now. I have it in hand right here.
Yes, Dustin has his copy. I've seen it.
I mean, just listen to that book.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Does it sound like a great book? But it is. So
it's a nice book. It's well done.
It's a nice book. It's gorgeous. It's got a great layout. The
layout's good and readable.
Tons of
cool pictures.
Like capsule reviews about different films, all that involve the death of children.
Yeah, one of my favorite subjects.
Which is a fun subject. And if you listen to Unsung Horrors, you know that Erica is a specialist on that style of film.
She loves her some dead kids.
Yes, and it's just great. And also worth noting that it has an amazing layout by a designer named Hot Love. I'm sure he has a real name, but that's the handle you'll find them under.
Artist name.
Yes.
His TV name. One day all of us will have TV names.
And she made this point, I think, on the crowdfunding campaign, but like and nowadays where like AI art is slowly taking over and consuming everything, artists don't get enough credit for what they do.
Fucking A.
And I mean, a good layout, good visual design, that like really elevates any work. So
agreed. Much
love to all the work that went into this book.
Yep.
And if you want it, you can pick it up for yourself. They're selling the remaining stock of that first run. There's like a big cartel site you can go to. I'll put the link in the show notes if you too would like to own it. As far as I know, it seems well received. I was kind of just searching through, other people talking about it, and yeah, it's all been really positive and really great.
Well, it's a unique subject. I don't recall seeing a book quite like that before.
And that's what's awesome. If you love books on film, and especially like obscure, really niche topics, I think it's like a must-own. So
yeah, it's very nice. I'll have to pick up my own copy soon.
Unless they're all gone.
Yeah, well, then I'll just have to steal yours.
And maybe at some point down the road, we'll mine this book and like do a few films out of it or something.
We totally should.
That seems like a fun thing to do.
Absolutely.
So look for that in the future.
Go through, pick one out randomly.
Other admin thing. We love when we get comments from people.
Yeah.
And we love when you reach out and talk to us. And we got a rather hilarious comment on our last full episode on Spotify. As someone said, and I quote, "Will someone please feed that cat?" Now, Jason, would you like to address this?
I would, yes.
Okay.
Dear listener, thank you for the comment, first of all, and for listening to us. I assure you, Lily is well fed.
Some may say too well fed.
She is too well fed. I have recently had to stop feeding her turkey, which is what she was crying for. Even though she has a full food bowl, she wants her turkey, but she's getting a little too pudgy, a little too chunky, and I want a healthy cat to live a long time. So
Yes.
I'm going to be a more responsible cat dad, and I've cut out her turkey. So you might hear her yowling again, but trust me.
Just know she is fine.
She's fine.
And she is a very lovely cat.
I'll post a picture of her.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, so with that out of the way, what have you been watching?
Okay, well, speaking of AI art and some scandals, some controversy.
There's been several.
This one's fairly minor in my opinion. I know it upset you a lot, but I did watch.
Hold on, let me clench my ass real tight.
Do it,
Okay.
yeah. I don't.
Now
want anything to
continue.
get out. I watched Late Night with the Devil, directed by Cameron Cairns and Colin Cairns. A few things about this movie. Overall, I liked it a lot. I won't get into any spoilers because it's still pretty new.
On Shudder, right? Yeah.
It's on Shudder. And any self-respecting horror fan should have a Shudder subscription. The concept is really cool. I like the idea. I think it could have been executed a little better.
Well, it's kind of like a ghost watchy kind of.
It's like a lost TV episode, and it's kind of like a mockumentary about it. Although points for opening with a Pentagram song.
Oh, okay.
The band Pentagram, one of my favorite doom metal bands.
Don't know them too well, but I like what I've heard. So
Yeah, they play "Forever My Queen" at the beginning, and it's fucking awesome.
I'll throw that in the show notes.
But it's too slick. It's too slick. It doesn't look like a 70s.
That's a
late
hard
night broadcast
vibe to get right, I think.
I don't know. They didn't really try it though. Everything's crisp and clean. There's the show itself, and it's in 4:3, but it's like 4K. It's just too clean,
Super high quality, yeah.
And then there's kind of like almost behind the scenes footage almost that goes back to a widescreen, and it's in black and white.
Well, I mean, there's probably not an AI generator for that yet. So.
Right. I wish it stuck to the concept more. I wish it just sold it better. Because like Ghostwatch, I mean, it was played on TV. It was a TV show, and it looks just like one of those, like Geraldo Rivera and Al Capone's Revolt. It looks just like that.
Yeah. I saw another film a lot of people bring up is like the WNUF.
Yeah.
Halloween special,
right?
And that's like very committed to its
that
bit.
does it right, because that's actually if that's not shot on VHS, I would be surprised, because whatever they did afterward, filters or whatever, it looks like VHS, and I wish that's what this looked like. Like something that was scrubbed from the airwaves, they tried to get rid of, but someone had a copy that was like taped, copied 9 times over, and this is what we find. But yeah, it's a little too slick. And the end gets very grandiose.
Oh, it goes big?
Yeah, it goes big. And like the performances are good. The main guy, David, I'm going to massacre his name, Dest Malkian, is very good. All the supporting cast is good. The story itself is pretty fun. But it just doesn't, there's not enough payoff. So the whole AI thing, for those of you who may not know.
Do you want to address that now?
Yeah. So they used some little interstitials during the program.
Like title cards, right?
Yeah, like bumpers, And apparently they used some AI to generate these. Now, I don't know if the artist who did the other artwork for the movie was like, I'm going to play around with AI. That doesn't upset me too much. But if they were like, when it's like, we don't want to pay an artist, let's just generate some AI crap, that's what pisses me off. Now, I'm not a fan of AI either, but it's not so egregious in this movie to get too upset about it, in my opinion.
Okay.
Honestly, those posters they made for
Civil War
upset me more. Because that's just... ultimately lazy.
The people stalking the like swan duck monster thing.
Right, yeah. And the car that had like 3 doors or something.
Yeah.
And
Let alone the fact none of those scenes are in the movie.
Yeah. Or the Netflix documentary that used
That one's kinda
AI
heinous,
imagery. When you're, especially when you're doing a documentary and you're using that sort of stuff, it just undermines everything.
It's one thing if you have like no footage of something. And it's like we created like a replica for purposes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's just dishonest. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the movie to me is worth watching. Mm-hmm. But it could have been more. It could have been better, and that's what upsets me more.
It gave you a taste, and you wanted the full course.
Right.
Okay.
And there's some unfortunate CG that takes you right out, and it's something that could have done practically. It could have been done practically, and they just, I don't know.
Okay.
With the CG route, and it looks bad.
Well, I guess I'll say my piece on AI art and rackle some feathers here. So I just want to say AI art, I think there's a place for it, but it's not in commercial works. I think like you want to make a funny meme and send your friend. Okay, whatever.
Or you want to make something that illustrate your own work, like you're doing a role-playing game or something.
Yeah.
And it's not for sale.
Like we all sit down to play D&D, and in like 2 seconds you're like, oh, well, this is kind of what this monster looks like.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Perfect.
Whatever. But then I think when you move into the realm of commercial stuff, it's just like nasty because there's so many talented artists out there.
Yeah.
And they could have easily gone on Fiverr, and I'm sure just to even get their work in a film, someone would have done it for,
Yeah, peanuts.
Yeah. So I just want to say that I say AI art in movies, never not once, don't budge the line. Fuck these filmmakers. I actually hope they don't make any more movies. I will never watch this film. I don't care how good people say it is. I think that it's a Pandora's box, and when we say, and this is no offense to you, Jason, but when we say, oh, okay, it's just a little bit, it doesn't really matter, it's only a few seconds. Sure, and then everyone goes, okay, well, that passed, so now let's do it more. And then a big studio looks, and they're like, well, why do we need any artists? Because we can just do whatever.
Dude, in 5 years, they're all going to be using it. It's going to be fucking everywhere, and you know
and
it.
It's unfortunate, and the people that said it didn't matter here, it's your fault. So, there you go.
They came from my real artist, and I said nothing.
Yes, exactly. What else are you watching? Anything?
I'm done.
Okay.
In 5 years, they're going to be using it, and we won't even know it. That's the thing. It's going to get that good, and we won't fucking know. Because, I mean, look at the CG atrocities we're getting already. Are we going to be able to tell the difference between shitty CG and okay AI?
True.
We won't.
And have you seen, they have that demo out now of like the, it can make film, like generatively AI.
You could give it like a description.
A prompt. I'll link to the website just because it is kind of weird in an interesting way, in a scary way.
Right now, though, you could tell it looks off. It looks weird. It looks fake.
But they have that demo footage of it's like a street in Japan and people walking. And the scenery looks great, but then when you start looking at the people a little more, you're like,
it's funky.
That's funky.
5-10 years, though, it'll be perfected, and we won't even know.
Well, hey, 5-10 years. Who knows if we'll even be here?
That's a good point.
Woo!
Good point.
All right.
What have you been watching?
So there's broadly 2 things I want to talk about. First is I went to a Fathom event, the U.S. screening of the Mobile Suit Gundam Seed movie, Gundam Seed Freedom.
God, you're such a nerd.
I am super nerd, turbo nerd, love Gundam Seed. It was the Gundam series that was really big in the early 2000s. It's weirdly hated in the West by a lot of fans. I'm not sure why. It's like one of the most popular in Japan.
Because anime fans have never been irrational.
Yeah. I've always loved it. I think it's great. It's got amazing mech designs, really cool setting, worldview. It's kind of like a more modern reboot of the original, but it does its own things. It does a lot with I was ranting to you and Michael about this on our chat, but it does a lot with genetic testing and stuff, and they experiment on people and make superhumans, and then it's should they exist, or do they have the right to rule over humans because they're superior or not? And it tackles a lot of themes of racism and the evils of that, but through a sci-fi lens to get you there.
Does it touch on the evils of AI?
Not in this film so much, no, but give it time. But it was super fun, really great. It's not one I'm going to say run out and go see it, because it does look great and it is well composed and everything, but this is a direct continuation of where the anime stopped. So the anime had a series of 50 episodes, had another series of 50 episodes, all kinds of tie-in manga you could read if you wanted, and then there's this film. So like, if you just walk in with no knowledge, I mean, you're not gonna be like, you can get the A B of like, oh, there's these two sides, and one is bad and one is good, and they're fighting and stuff's going on. But like, you're not gonna know what's going on or any of the subtlety of like characters and interactions. So it's not like it's a spectacle, go and see it. But like, if you're a giant robot fan, you like mecha anime, you should watch Gundam Seed at some point, and invariably you'll get to this film. And it was quite satisfying. I really loved it. It did a lot of good like build up on where the show ended and had like payoff for that. But I'm not going to get into it because I would be sitting here for the whole episode explaining it. So
right, okay,
that's that.
All right.
On the other hand, I went back and rewatched all the Pirates of the Caribbean films. I thought I was just going to talk about the first one, but then when we had to skip a time, that gave me the extra time to watch the rest.
How do they hold up?
Let's shoot through them real quick. So the original, I'm going to say Stone Cold Classic.
I love the original.
Who thought when it came out that turning a Disney ride into a movie would be...
It was the biggest surprise.
Yeah.
I sat there and I'm like, holy fuck, this movie's actually good.
Amazing. And what I really took away this time rewatching it was like the choreography of the sword fights and stuff. Like, man, it's really, really good.
Yeah,
really good action, really cool set pieces. Dead Man's Chest, I fucking love this one. I know a lot of people say this is where it immediately started going wrong, but I love how it gets like darker. It takes all the plot points of the first film and complicates them further with new information. Davy Jones is fucking ridiculous, like freaking Captain Cthulhu with like weird subhuman monster people on his ship.
Yeah, he looks great.
All of that is amazing. Great acting in there. And it does the true like trilogy thing of it ends on kind of that low point.
It's Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, where everything takes that downturn and you're just like, ooh, where's it going to go? At World's End. Now, we were talking about this before I rewatched it, and yeah, I believe you called it a turd, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. That's a big turd.
I still like it, but this time was the first time I watched it where I kind of like looked at the flaws a little more, and I was like, man, this is pretty bloated. There's a lot of stuff you could cut. It's really convoluted. But at the end of the day, though, like, freaking Chow Yun-Faden's there, man.
Yeah, but he doesn't really fucking do anything.
No, not really. And he's also kind of rapey, which is a little weird.
Yeah. That's not Chow.
Which was a weird general problem in the whole thing of like, it's just Elizabeth and everyone's kind of like lusting over her. And
no, I mean, she is hot.
Fair enough.
I'm not saying you should rape her. I'm just saying.
But it's still cool for the world building, the scope, the scale of it, the ridiculousness. I really took away how like crazy Will Turner is as a character, that he's just like this uber badass. And it's all earned from that first film where it's like he did nothing but just practice and train all the time because he had like no life.
Yeah. That was the one thing that kind of bugged me. Because he makes the swords. If you're making that many swords, you don't have time to actually train with them. You know how long it takes to make a sword?
And that's a subtle thing that I love. Like, you track the progression of that sword and like how it changes hands to different people all this time. And then it comes like full circle there in the final moments.
It's like Luke's lightsaber.
Yeah, it is.
Except somehow less dumb.
Yeah. Then we get to our two follow-up films. So On Stranger Tides, this was our kind of Jack Sparrow solo outing.
And that's just where I stopped. I didn't watch this one.
I fucking love this one, man, because it's like you go into like Florida setting, Fountain of Youth stuff, Ponce de Leon. We get Blackbeard. They fully embraced like the weird supernatural power stuff even further, where he has like the sword that can control his ship, which is insane. It's dumb, it's fun, it's inconsequential, but I do enjoy it. And then we've got our final one, Dead Men Tell No Tales, or for some reason, if you're in Europe, it's Captain Salazar's Revenge. I don't know why they switched the name up, but
yeah, that's odd.
This one is like, it's weird in the sense that it's like bloated as well, even though it has a shorter runtime, because there's so many ideas going on. And I think most people are going to say it's shitty, and it probably is. But, like, I don't know, man. Something about it that they bring it full circle. They got Will's kid in the mix. They kind of, like, play out to the end of, like, trying to break that curse and free him from the Dutchman so he can be back with his family. And you've got, like, Jack stewarding the next generation of characters. And I don't know. It's one of those things, if you've liked all these films, it's, like, junk food comfort to just sit there and watch it and be like,
Okay. I know they're trying to do another remake of it or something.
They are, and I don't know where they are with it because there's all the drama with Johnny Depp, of course. So, is he in?
I'd
is
be
he
perfectly
out?
happy if Johnny Depp is not in it.
I think it'll be a mistake to try to do Jack Sparrow without him.
Yeah,
but
I mean, do a different character, do something.
And I heard from a time they were going to maybe focus on like some female pirates of history, like was it like Anne Bond and Mary Read, which would be interesting characters to tap into.
That'd be cool.
But who knows where it is? They're going to make one eventually, but we'll see what happens. Better keep Hans Zimmer on lock though, because that fucking score once he steps in, woo!
No, he's always good.
Yeah, good stuff. Great music.
Okay.
And that's me. That's my pirate sojourn. Still hold up pretty well. Still pretty fun. They progressively get shittier as they go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, maybe someday I'll go back and watch the ones I didn't. Although I wouldn't hold your breath.
I mean, on Stranger Tides though, you've got Penelope Cruz playing foil to Jack Sparrow, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So. That can at least pull you through that one.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And the big sadness of it all too is Dead Man Tells No Tales. It has like a cliffhanger post credits thing setting up another film, which I guess we're never gonna get now. But
or maybe we will.
Maybe we will. That would be crazy. But let us move on to truly Stranger Tides and talk about Heroic Purgatory.
Yes, let's.
Right, so Heroic Purgatory, 1970, Yoshishige Yoshida, or often referred to as Kiju Yoshida. Prominent Japanese director. This is the second film in sort of a loose thematic trilogy he made. It was preceded by Eros and Massacre, and followed up by Coup d'etat. All three deal with sort of political issues, revolutions, those kinds of topics.
So,
you just like conjured some of the score up there for a minute. That's cool.
That was kind of weird, wasn't it?
That was kind of weird, yeah.
I'm actually playing some of the movie right now.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not.
Weird.
That was weird.
Okay.
Let's go back.
I'm okay with it. Want to talk a little bit. Well, let's start with the genre. We always start there. So, what genre is this, Jason?
I've seen it described as fantasy, drama, and some people throw thriller in there. Mm-hmm. How about you? Have you seen the other different descriptions?
That all sounds pretty much on point. IMDb says drama fantasy. Wikipedia just says drama. I saw drama the most of anything.
Yes.
I think it's fair to throw in there surrealism.
Is art house a genre?
We can call it art house, avant-garde.
Because, I mean, this is... When people think of art house, I think this is what they're thinking of.
You open the dictionary and it's just a still of this.
Still of this.
Yeah, okay.
It's either Ingmar Bergman or this.
Yeah, it's in that wheelhouse for sure. So let me talk a little bit about Yoshida first before we dig in on this.
Okay.
He graduated from the University of Tokyo, where he studied French literature, which put a pin in that because I think there's some French films that may or may not be relevant to this movie. After graduating, he entered Shochiku Studio in 1955 and was an assistant to Keisuke Kinoshita. And he finally got his debut as a director in 1960 with Roku Denashi. And he became a central member of what people now call the Shochiku Nouvelle Vague, along with Nagisa Oshima, very prominent director, of course, and Masahiro Shinoda. And in broader sense, a lot of his films kind of fall under what people call the Japanese New Wave. And that was kind of that era where you have directors that kind of were breaking away from the studio cycle. They were wanting to experiment more, get weird with it, and not just check all the boxes to make the money for the studio.
Yeah, around this time frame, pretty much every country was going through this sort of
its own version of it.
Transition, yeah.
And for Japan, the one I always think of, my guy I love, is Seijun Suzuki, who had a huge tumultuous relationship with the studio system, ending with him getting kicked out and then just doing his own thing for a while.
There you go.
And so as far as Yoshida, in 1964, he directed a film called Escape from Japan. and Shochiku had so many problems with it that they went in behind him and re-edited it.
Ooh, that's shitty.
Which was a big divide between them, and he left the studio to start his own production company, which he debuted with Eros and Massacre, the first film in this little connected series. And then from that point up until about 2004, he did 20 more films, many of which starred his wife, Mariko Okada, which she's in this film as the main character's wife.
Okay.
And then he took a long absence for a while in that gap of time. I think in the 70s, and he did Coup d'etat in 73. And then it wasn't until like 86 that he came back with another film. He's won awards. He's had some other little gaps of hiatuses, and he's come back. He's done some TV documentaries in his later years. And in interviews, he said that European cinema was his greatest influence. Most notably, he highlighted directors like Ingmar Bergman, which you nailed right out the gate, Michelangelo Antonioni, very, very apt comparison, and some of the pre-war French films like the works of Jean Renoir. He also published a number of books about cinema, including one about his own films, and then a book about analysis of films of Yasujiro Ozu, another prominent Japanese director. Unfortunately, Yoshida died from pneumonia at a hospital in December of 2022 at the age of 89.
Oh, wow, not too long ago.
Ripe old age, not too long ago. And then my last little background thing is I wanted to talk a little bit about the Art Theater Guild. The Art Theater Guild, which you might see in the credits for this film. That was a Japanese independent film production and distribution company that started in 1961, and their focus was just to kind of back this new wave and produce art films and help those get released. So Yoshida worked a lot with them, and from around like the late 60s up into the mid 80s, they just churned out a lot of stuff from Yoshida and also other directors that wanted to work with them. And in 2018, they actually merged into Toho. They got bought out.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they do too much these days, but I guess like Toho's always kind of been in the mix with them. They originally started as like a financier behind them, where they were kind of like, hey, if you have an idea you like, we'll put up some money to help you get it going.
Well, it's too bad he never did a Godzilla movie.
That would be interesting. Probably be more along the Smog Monster vein, right?
Yeah.
But some of the early films that they've released are very prominent ones that I've seen or others have talked about. Shohei Imamura's A Man Vanishes in 1967. Nagisa Oshima's Diary of a Shinjuku Thief in 1968, as well as Death by Hanging in 1968. Toshio Matsumoto's Funeral Parade of Roses from 1969, big film. And Akio Jisoji's Mujo from 1970.
All right.
So that's just a little history with Yoshida, kind of orient him and what he's going on and what he's about.
Okay.
Kind of this renegade that broke away from the studios to do his own thing, unrestrained with no filter to stop him. And thus barfed forth, in 1970, heroic Purgatory. Which, let me just hit you with a synopsis.
Okay.
Which may be the most relevant details we'll have for a little bit. Rikiya Shoda is an engineer working for the Atomic Agency in Japan. One day, his wife Nanako returns home with a lost teenager called Ayu. A man pretending to be the father comes to get her back. Ayu keeps telling him that Rikiya and Nanako are her parents. Through this disruption, Rikiya suddenly starts remembering his youth as a revolutionary. Now, did you get that from the film, or?
I did get that from the film.
Okay, cool.
But
so there is a core story that progresses.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we do open with Nanako, played by Mariko Okada. Beautiful lady. You can see why he cast her as the lead in a lot of his stuff.
Quite comely.
And she's just kind of wandering through this parking garage. And immediately a few things we should set up. We've got, we're in black and white.
Yes. It's avant-garde after all.
Avant-garde, yeah. Which they really do a lot with like the visuals as far as like shadow and light and dark. We're in like a fixed, not like full widescreen frame. Mm-hmm. And
it's pretty much 4:3.
Yeah, pretty much 4:3. And we have this really haunting score that's composed by Toshi Ichi Yanagi.
Yes, the score is quite good.
it is just, man, it comes full force, and it's got this epic, like, moaning, like,
It's very
orchestral
kind of
thing.
ethereal.
And, it feels like it's from a horror film, but yet this is never...
Goodness.
The theater, the room is being haunted. So it's got this very, like, horror film score almost. Like, it gives you, like, feelings of dread when you hear it, but yet that's not really the kind of film this is, which is a neat juxtaposition.
Yeah, I would also say the music reminds me of like almost like church choir kind of music.
That's a good comparison. And then there'll be these weird like digital like kind of just mix in too. But Nanako's like wandering through this parking garage. It seems abandoned, which is definitely a reoccurring motif in this film.
Very much so.
Often where we only see the main characters, and there's not really too many extras. There's not just like people milling about, wandering.
Yeah, and this. So the best thing about this movie, I'll just go ahead and say that, is the cinematography.
Oh God, it's beautiful.
The compositions are amazing.
Which the cinematographer is Motokichi Hasegawa, and it was edited by Hiroyuki Yasuoka.
This is kind of what I think the director of Skinamarink wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because it uses the whole liminal spaces
oh my God.
thing correctly.
Yeah, if you like that idea of liminal spaces, this is like a film that you just need to breathe in and just exist in.
Because none of the characters are ever really the focus of the scene. Like, he'll be shooting something like at the very beginning, like you're in the parking garage, but almost the top 2/3 of the screen is filled in by the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, and it's almost like you're looking around corners at people and you're like a voyeur, like you're spying.
Yeah, it's like you are a character there and you're just kind of peeping at everything that happens.
Yeah.
And there's this reoccurring type of scene, and it happens right here. She's kind of walking around where there's these metal shutters, and one will start to open, but behind it is just like a void of white light that's so bright you can't really see what's beyond it.
Yeah.
But quickly we notice a different woman walking through. It's younger, seems like a teen or something. We later learn this is Ayu, played by Kazumi Tsutsui. And she seems kind of panicked, kind of rushing around. And she stops, looks a bit. She notices Nanako, and then she kind of just rushes and goes over the edge. And Nanako goes to check on her, and we got this cool, it's like the spiral down of like leaving the parking garage.
Right.
And there is Ayu laying down at the bottom, seemingly having plummeted to her death.
And then it's like these nurses and doctors come out with a stretcher and put her on it and wheel her into this hospital. And
it's weird because there's no ambulance. They just like emerge out of nowhere.
There's no people anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, this could almost be like a post-apocalyptic film. It actually reminds me, I wonder if Argento was inspired by this when he did Tenebrae.
Oh, you think so?
Because it has that same look. Like, everything's very austere and almost too bright.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it looks overexposed, and there's nobody around.
Yeah. It's a good comparison to bring up. Yeah. So Nanako's kind of following because she's like, what's going on? Is this girl okay? And it's another really haunting scene where it's like she reaches where the stretcher was, and it kind of just rolls down a hill.
Yeah, it's empty.
And it's empty, and there's no people anymore. And then we cut away to sort of an office building, and that's where we meet Rikiya Shoda, our main character, played by Kaizo Kamoda.
And he's the husband.
He's some sort of engineer we know initially. He's got like a big drafting table where he's working on some designs.
A huge empty office.
Lots of negative space, which is nothing there. He's got a secretary, and she's kind of typing as he's dictating. At first, what seems to be a speech, but it's more just him rambling, which we eventually learn is that he's recounting his dream to her.
Right.
And he's talking about it's very absurdist. Like, it made me think of like some Kafka stuff, because it's like he's talking about that he woke up and he was surrounded by cockroaches, and then he was on a ship made of wood and it was slowly sinking, and
he rescued a boy.
And then he realized it was his son and his second son, and he's going through all of that, and he's kind of peering out the window, and we see another woman walking along, different from the other two that we've seen.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was supposed to be Ayu.
It looks like Ayu, but it's actually a third individual.
And some goons come up and take her away.
Yeah, they actually inspect her and like pat her down as if they're checking for weapons or objects or. I believe this is supposed to be Joko. But in my notes, when I was kind of trying to piece together the plot, I just referred to her as the spy, because we quickly learned that she is snooping around into a lot of things.
The plot is very hard to follow. Let's just go ahead and say that.
It is, and I'm going to try to unravel it for you, Jason,
it's-
because I have some thoughts now that I've watched this like 20 times.
Okay. All right. It is not a conventional story.
It is not. No. But yeah, he's kind of just musing about his dreams. He's like, I don't know if it was a good omen or a bad omen or what's going on. We catch back up with Nanako, and she has followed these people to the hospital. And Ayu's being questioned by a doctor. And they again have this very weird, very absurdist exchange where she says, oh, I'm lost. I don't know where I am. And he almost like threateningly is like, no, you're not lost. Because if you can admit that you're lost, you know where you are. You're not really lost.
No matter where you go, there you are.
And then her retort is, oh, well, everybody's lost when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I wrote this down because I thought it was interesting. He says, once you understand that you were lost, you can go back where you came and ask your way. Which is odd. But she states she's looking for her mother. And there's some weird bit about she gave birth to her but then never noticed she was born. And it's not really film related, but I wanted to say this makes me think of like some of the works of like Samuel Beckett. Like I think of his play Endgame.
Okay. I'm not that familiar with
another
that.
touchstone if you want to get into some other stuff that has this vibe. But eventually Nanako enters, and the doctor's sort of questioning. He's like, oh, is this your daughter, or what's going on? And then we almost like hard cut away from that without seeing what's happened. And we're at the home of Rikiya and Nanako. He's smoking. He's in his nice like lounge clothes now. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of taking stock of what's going on because Nanako has brought Ayu home.
Well, okay, so Nanako comes home and she's telling her husband about her encounter, about what she saw.
Yeah.
And then we kind of pan around and suddenly Ayu is just there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like she brings her through the door. She's just there. Like, just talking about her conjured her.
Yeah, there is a lot of
really
like
cool scene.
gaps where they just have stuff that's happened that you don't know has happened.
You know David Lynch saw this fucker
Yeah.
before he made Eraserhead.
Okay, so you're going to agree that it is Lynchian then.
Yes, it's very Lynchian.
But they're kind of debating about what to do, and anytime they're in this apartment, like there's so many cool angles and just like weird blocked out shots.
And it's another like austere apartment. You know, everything is very white and very
clean and pure.
Yeah.
There's not a speck of dust. Nothing's out of order. And they kind of debate about this.
antiseptic. That's the word.
Antiseptic. That's a good term. They kind of debate about this, and Rikiya doesn't really think that she's lost. She thinks she's trying to maybe scam them or take advantage of them somehow. And Nanako wants to let her stay with them, and he's like, nah, we should just take her to the police. But they're interrupted by the ring of the doorbell. Mm-hmm. And immediately Ayu gets afraid and kind of goes and hides in one of the back rooms.
Or disappears.
Yeah.
Like literally.
And they open the door to this kind of suspicious guy with dark glasses on. And he's sort of looking around. He's peering past their shoulders. He's trying to peek. It's weird because he just kind of barges in and starts checking rooms. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing right now?
Right. And they're pretty nonplussed by this guy.
Yeah, they're
it's
just
like, can
letting
we help you? I know Japanese people are polite, but damn.
there are limits. And he claims that he is Ayu's father, but she hates him, and she tries to deny that they're related. Mm-hmm. And eventually she runs to Rikiya and Nanako and declares them her parents.
Right.
Says, protect me from this stranger. He's always trying to abduct me. Mm-hmm. And his retort is that he says Ayu is troubled, and she's always hated him. And he kind of corners her in the bathroom and reveals that she had this microphone planted on her. Mm-hmm. And that listening to them was how he tracked down where she was.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
It's very odd. It's all dream logic.
It is, yeah. And this sets up where we're going to get into some of the political angle of this, of like different revolutionary groups and spies and other stuff going on.
And I'll be honest, that's when it starts to lose me.
Ooh, okay.
Because I was into this for the first 45 minutes or so. And then I just
So you're wanting the Lynch stuff then, the girl in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just a hard left turn, and I couldn't okay. Anyway, we'll get to that.
So yeah, she wants to stay, and after he reveals the mic, he's kind of like, well, I'm just going to back off for now. But then as he's about to leave, he has this weird conversation with Rikia where they're talking about this place with these stone steps.
They know the same place.
They know the same place, and it seems like maybe they have some connection more than they had been letting on. And they talk about it, he's like, you walk up the steps, and there's this big dome, and it's on the right. And then he's like, oh, well, I thought it was on the left. And then he retorts back, and he's like, well, maybe it's been a while. I don't really remember the layout. Mm-hmm. And it's just this little ominous, like, seed you're given. And then we quick cut to a scene where you're in a car seat, POV kind of looking out. It's parked on the side of the road, and we slowly see people come into view. This made me think a little bit of Inflatable Sex Doll of the Wastelands. That early shot where they're in the car and having that meeting right at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that.
But this is Ayu and Rikia, and he's taking her out around the town, and they're kind of looking for her home so he can return her. And she's just sort of silently walking along, and he's kind of berating her, and he's like, well, where's your home at? Where are we going to go next? And he kind of thinks, they're just on a wild goose chase. Mm-hmm. And she leads him to, like, I guess it's a train station, and they go down into, like, an underground area. Subway-ish.
Yeah.
We never see the lines or anything.
Yeah.
And we get this odd moment where she's going to a bathroom, and she walks in one side, and then the woman that had been creeping outside of Rikia's office comes out the other.
Okay, yes.
And I think this might be a point where some people get confused. 'Cause I talked about this with a friend once. He thought it was the same character, but it's actually two different people.
I think I was probably feeling the same way. But then I also wonder if it was doing something with time. Mm-hmm. Like if Ayu's father, in quotation marks, was just the future.
Mm-hmm. So there's several time periods in this film, and we get into it more. Intentionally, they never give you like a title card that says like, oh, now it's 1960, now it's 1980.
Right, and it's more like someone, like the lead character, remembering everything.
Yeah, because kind of what I took was like, whenever he has that conversation in the house, that like starts to get him to like think about the past, mm-hmm. and that's like blending with him and Ayu going and looking for her home.
Right, which in theory is an intriguing idea, but in execution, it just, I don't know, it didn't work for me. I wasn't feeling it.
That's fair, I'm going to say.
Okay.
But so yeah, he's following this other woman, and she leads him out and to this building that's kind of flooded with light. It's very faint, you can't hardly see it. And there's this cool long shot where it's like him kind of spying still from the shadows on her, and she enters the building, and then the doors burst open and this group marches out.
Yeah.
Very, very busybodied, very like, oh, we got to go, we got to do something.
Yeah, they're on a mission.
It's 5 people, 4 men and 1 woman. And I think this is like one of those flashbacks kind of triggering to me in my eyes. Like she went to this place, and that place was significant to him.
Right. And
then the memory kind of starts playing back.
But he looks the same and everything, and it's like his present self is just sort of taking over where his past self was, I guess.
But they go into the building, and they kind of meet in this private area with tables, and they're talking and debating, and this is some sort of revolutionary group, which in the broader sense, we know this is like that whole, what we talked about with Kichiku, the like communist incursion into Japan that happened, the student revolts.
Sadly, there are fewer head explosions in this one.
Fewer head explosions, a lot more paranoia, though.
Okay.
And they're kind of debating about what to do, and there's some talks of like their plans have been compromised because there's a spy in there, and the spy has leaked information. And some say we need to go forward with the plan. Some say we need to stop the plan. And I like this scene a lot because they're all debating, and Riki is kind of just there. And you don't know if this is like the memories playing out before him or not.
Right.
Because they never interact with him.
Right.
But then the woman in the group, she at one point gets mad and kind of storms out, and she does this like pause where she stares at Rikia, and you're kind of wondering like, does she see him there or not?
Yeah. But
then once she leaves, he begins to interact with the people, and it kind of just throws away your initial theory of what's going on.
Right.
And it's all very subtle. Even the fact that they're like communist, they never come out and say it. It's more you just pick it up because they call each other comrade.
Yeah, that's big. Big flag. Big red flag.
But whatever they're doing, their plan is to assassinate this important political figure that's promoting peace, and they're kind of like handing off weapons to make sure that that person gets killed.
They seem to have more of a plan than the kids in Kichiku did.
They do, yeah. These people seem like, at least to them, they think they're doing something. Which, put a pin in that.
Proletariat, that word
important.
gets thrown around a lot.
And so then Rikia gets led to this large abandoned warehouse, which is another of our reoccurring locations. And they're kind of still talking about this political figure. I think it's Ambassador M.
Yeah.
Which gets confusing because later there's also an Ambassador J.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't really know what's going on, but kind of just blasts into white, and we hear the gunshot. And we don't know, did Rikia shoot this other agent on their group, or was that kind of just a suggestion of the assassination?
I don't know.
And we don't get to find out, because then we come back to where we were in the maybe present with IU and Rikia, and they're entering the warehouse. And then Rikia gets a little weird.
It's getting grabby with her.
Gets a little handsy.
Aggressive grabby.
There's a great blocked shot against this like stone wall, and he decides to get a little grabby, a little choky. Maybe he's into some aggressive stuff there. And she's pulling away, doesn't want anything, uninterested, until she runs off a little bit
and starts to strip.
And it's kind of, you never see them do anything, but it's kind of just suggestive. And then curiously, as it kind of pans out while this is going on, we start to get it in like a film reel footage.
Yeah, it's like a projection.
Yeah, like someone's watching footage that was recorded.
It's like 16 millimeter.
Yeah. Which is an interesting effect. And then let's see. Next we pick up with Rikia in his office, I believe.
I believe you're correct. This is a very hard movie to recap.
It is, yeah.
I'm letting you do the heavy lifting.
I intentionally watched it twice, once just to take notes of like the plot progression, so we can kind of hit some of these beats along the way.
All right.
And at the end, I will try to puzzle piece them together. Yeah, so he's back in his office, and this is where we get a little more information about Rikia. He's talking to another guy, and the other dude's kind of talking him up about how great he is. And he's like, oh, man, I wish that we had known about you, all these years ago. And he's like, well, I was here. I was just invisible to you. You didn't recognize me then.
Yeah. And he's like serious. It's not being poetic.
Yeah.
I think he's actually trying to be serious, right?
But we learned that, let's see, what was it? He graduated from Tokyo University. Then he went to MIT. He was apparently involved in the group that developed the atomic bomb for 2 years and was a big backbone in their developments. Won all kinds of numerous science awards, and then came back to Japan in 1960 to get married to his wife.
Worked with lasers, didn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the
That's his
plot points?
current project that he's on, is developing laser beams, which is a weird sci-fi twist.
It is.
And they talk a little bit about the Ambassador J. He's arriving soon, and
that's going to be my rap name, by the way.
Ambassador J.
Ambassador J.
I like it. I'm going to will that into existence. Okay. But they get into talking about the laser beams, and they kind of talk about like, oh, it's got this really high power to destroy if you really focus the laser, which seems to suggest maybe that's going to be used in a assassination plot or something.
I'd like to see some lasers.
And he's talking at this point with that spy lady. Always in a very stylish, flashy miniskirt, I must add.
Yes.
I thought she was quite attractive in this film. I don't know if she's done much else, but I forgot what I was saying. Oh, anyways.
A little sidetracked.
A little sidetracked. Anyways, she kind of just confronts him about this like secret organization stuff, and they talk about some of the other members, one named Otto and one named Sei, that have both vanished. And again, hints that maybe they've been conspiring, maybe not.
But we have no idea who they are.
And she says, regardless of what's happened, even if the organization gets destroyed, we just need to keep moving forward. And he asks who she is, what she's really doing, what's going on, but she doesn't answer. And she says, it doesn't really matter what I say or what I do. We're going to contact you later about the next stage of the plan. And he's like, well, I've not really even agreed to help you guys, so I don't know what you're thinking. And she says, it doesn't matter. When the time comes, you will help us. Then we pick back up with Nanako. She's hanging at home, reading a magazine, being a good housewife. And then IU casually comes in and is like, "Hey, Mom, let's kill Dad."
Right. She's like, okay.
And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Let's kill all the dads because they're terrible. And we should just kill them all." And at first it's just like conversation, and then we pan to actually see IU, and she's tied herself to a chair for some reason.
Or has been tied
to a chair. And she kind of like picks up the chair and is like walking with it.
That's very odd.
And then suddenly she's not tied to the chair anymore. And she's making like a dog leash, which she puts around herself, and kind of wants Nanako to walk her around like a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Riki returns amid all of this. And he just launches into like, "Yeah, I keep looking up information about IU, but I can't find anything. I just don't know. There's no reports about missing girls, or I don't know what we're going to do."
Mm-hmm.
And with him there, IU's like, "All right, let's kill him. Come on, let's go. let's get him."
The whole time she's talking about how to kill the daddies.
And we just cut away from that. We don't really get more of it. We catch back up with our mysterious spy woman, and she's at some sort of like, you call it like a factory or like an office building. There's big computer banks.
Yeah.
And there's a woman in a suit that comes up and kind of is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she's got this weird little like almost like a lunch pail or something.
Mm-hmm. Suggests
maybe there's something hidden in there. And the woman in the suit kind of starts coming onto her, which is weird.
Yeah.
And again, there's some weird like sexual tension there. Which then cuts to, again, that 16mm camera footage of what's going on. And then we get, it's some of these other men we've seen and we've cut to a few times that are, I guess, part of the spy organization or a different organization. And they're kind of just, I guess, keeping tabs on everyone. And there's debate about when this incident occurred, if any of their plans were leaked due to what happened. As this is going on, we're all over the place now at this point. Back at the apartment, IU's creeping around. Nanako's making tea. And she has this weird conversation about, what she say, like, numbers spill out of you when you sleep.
Yeah.
And she says, "Sometimes I like to watch you when you sleep, and it makes me wonder, I don't know who you are sometimes these days, and I think about who you were before." And he seems pretty nonplussed by this. Just drinks his tea.
People are not easily fazed in this movie.
No, they are not. And she starts to talk about 10 years ago when she first decided to marry him. And she mentions about how she had all these different lives that were sort of laid out before her in different directions she could have taken. But in the end, she chose Rikia and a life being with him and being his wife. And in that same kind of like, whatever, I don't care attitude, he's just like, "Hey, I had sex with IU."
Right, yeah, by the way.
And she also isn't very like stunned by this. And she's just like, "Well, I still love you."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Doorbell rings. It's our mysterious secret agent lady. She just drops some more advancement on the conspiracy plot. She says Ambassador J is going to visit Rikia in a few days, and that he needs to hold him there for an extra hour past the scheduled time. And he's kind of like, "Well, how am I supposed to do that?"
Right.
She's like, "Whatever, just figure it out."
Yeah.
Then, adding to the absurdity of all of this, she walks past him, goes to Nanako, and she's like, "Hey, I'm in love with your husband. I visit him all the time at his office. I come on to him. He won't pay me any attention."
Mm-hmm. People are very forthright in this movie.
And she's like, I kept trying to tempt him. I even guided him out to this abandoned place where we could be alone. I begged him to make love to me, but he just wouldn't do it. And the wife's just like, "You want some tea?" And it's like, man.
That Japanese politeness.
Yeah. And then speaking of abandoned places, we go back to the abandoned building. And we've got the guy who's been kind of the cameraman all this time. He's got a cool look. He's got like some dark sunglasses, some messy hair.
Yeah. He's got kind of an anime look to him.
Yeah. Good vibe to him. I don't think he's even in the credits with a name attached to him.
No, he looks like the dude who might have been in Kichiku.
Oh, yeah.
Long hair and kind of hippie looking. Yeah.
He was bouncing around doing this, and then he linked up with the Kichiku people and met an unfortunate fate.
Yeah, regretted it.
So our secret agent shows up there, and they're kind of talking about everything and how the plan is going, which then leads to them talking about love And he wants to know what love means to her, which he says it's freedom. And he drops this interesting line where he says, it's odd, you start out as a revolutionary, but in the end you wind up as a lesbian.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is where we get a name for the secret agent. Or no, not the secret agent, one of the other members. Another member named Ritsuko. And that she spilled some of the plan. We're in the weeds,
confused.
Jason. We're so in the weeds.
I did not follow the plot.
And talking about what's going on, he says that being a spy is akin to a sexual act. There's a shudder of pleasure that goes through your body during the moment. Again, no real validation or explanation on what's going on. We cut back to Nanako, and she's now at like a monorail. That's how I would describe what it looks like. Because it is a train, but it's like up on an elevated
it's like
track.
Some sort of overpass or something.
Yeah. And it's a great shot where it's like down on the ground, looking up at her.
This movie's all
on
great
the platform.
shots. The whole movie is a great shot.
Yeah, if you just search the film and then look at images and just get like the screens, you'll be like, oh my god,
yeah,
this is amazing. And so she's out with IU. They're again just kind of seeking for her home. And they enter this bar, and we've got the original man that claimed to be her father, and he's down there smoking. And it kind of runs IU off, and Nanako's like, I guess I'm going to talk to this guy and see if I can figure anything else out.
All right.
What are you going to do at this point? And he says he was waiting for them, and that IU's always going to insist that he's not the father, but he is. And what he ultimately tells her is that there are many truths to everything. Only the one who can give evidence is right. Which is an interesting comment amid everything we've seen up to this point.
Yeah.
And then he tells her a story about how whenever he was a kid, his dream was to design spaceships. But in college, he met IU's mother and fell in love, and then he gave up on that dream, and that she became his dream, being with her. But one day, right after giving birth to IU, she vanished. And then he spent all this time seeking her, looking for her. And then finally he found her, and she was just working at a store somewhere. And he eventually stalked her and confronted her. And she just came back home and started living with him again. And then in about 2 weeks, she vanished. Once more. Now there's no punchline. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
That is the story.
It doesn't help explain anything, really. But, okay.
Interesting details. And then we pick back up with Rikia. He's talking lasers again.
Spaceships and lasers.
Yep.
See, I was getting primed for something that never happened.
Yeah, that's all ancillary. He's talking to our secret agent lady, and they're going over his research. And there's more talk about, how great he is. And this is where we get that long hallway, the really neat design, and we get that tracking shot that goes down it. We see it several times in the film, but I think this is the first moment for it. Again, just great set design, scenery, and blocking. So he speaks to our secret agent and says, hey, we should just stop this plan. Let's not go forward with it. And then there's some talk about the original assassination attempt on the ambassador. And he says that he knows what happened with all of that. And then she says that he betrayed them. And he says, I can't betray them because I don't have enough freedom to do so. Which is, again, more ominousness.
Yeah.
And then
powerlessness of characters in this movie.
There is, yeah. Which is another theme, perhaps. So then we cut to, Rikia has been gathered by all of the organization. And they're accusing him of being a spy. They've been looking this whole time. The one, through line we've known is that there is a spy in some capacity, and that spy has ruined everything. And yeah, they think it's him. They ask him about another member named Sei, and there's some debate about if he is a member or not a member, and if he was a person or it's just a made up person. And they're just pressing him for the truth, man. And they talk about the raid on Ambassador M, and he says, well, you helped Sei sabotage the plan. And Riki is like, no, you guys are just looking for any reason to pin it on me, but it wasn't me. And so Rikia brings up Otto, which that was the other name we got earlier on.
Yes.
And he says, it was Otto that came up with the plan. He set all this up. And this is where it gets like so twisty-turny that you're just like, what the fuck is going on at this point?
Yeah, this...
Because then they're like, no, you're wrong, because Otto was a spy, and we already took care of him about half a year ago.
Yeah, this is about the hour mark.
Yes.
And this is when I hit a wall at this point. I'm just going to be honest.
And he's like, no, we had a meeting with Otto, and the group, was falling apart, and we talked about this, and they're just, going in circles and circles, and then the group finally concludes, we know what's going on. Sei was the spy. You helped him. Ergo, you were also against us, and we want to kick you out. Bad times for our man Rikia, but we catch back up with Nanako. In the apartment. There's a cool shot of like the blinds being shut and then opening, and again we get that like flood of light motif going on.
Yeah, a lot of overexposure.
And she's talking with Ayu. Ayu's talking about how her...
Sadly not wearing a dog leash.
No, not this time. She's talking about her father and says that, every day he would come home and he would look different, and that her mom's always looking for him. And then she's like, hey, why don't you tie me up? It's getting some weird direction, and Nako's like, I don't know. Why do you want that? And Ayu says, well, it's mom that acts like a slave, and she would always ask dad to hit her. And she says that she tells kind of like this weird vague story about her parents sleeping together. And
meanwhile, Nanako puts on this weird hat.
Yeah, interesting hat.
It is.
And the way the story's going kind of suggests that Ayu was abused physically, sexually, perhaps. And it alarms Nanako, and she's like, well, this house is different. Let's stop this. If you're living with us, it's not going to be that way. And unfortunately, Riki has already had a go at her, but whatever. So we cut to that night, and Rikia is with the glasses man, who is Ayu's father, who we also now learn is this Sei individual that is allegedly a spy.
But is he really her father?
We don't know.
Okay, that's what I thought. He said it with
because
conviction.
when he asks him, he says, well, I'm not this Sei person, I'm just Ayu's father.
Right.
So then Riki is like, well, what about Otto? You disappeared and then all this bad stuff happened. And he's like, I'm not the Sei person. Sei never existed. That's just made up. And he's like, no. I heard rumors about you. 2 years ago, you had infiltrated an atomic organization in Germany. And then they talk about the woman that's kind of the original in that Core 5 that we saw.
Yes.
This is where we finally get her name like an hour later, which they refer to her as Anko. And they says that, Anko trusted you, and that led to her downfall in the organization. Which then we immediately cut to her being interrogated by like the mob.
And she gets tied up.
And they make a vague suggestion about forcing the truth out of her by any means necessary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unsavory means.
Yes. And they say, hey, just give us the truth. Spill the beans on everything you know. Let us get the traitor. She refuses to speak. Then we cut to this like really haunting shot of her kind of walking through the wilderness, just drifting all on her own.
Yeah, very misty and mythical looking.
Then we cut to one of those raised platforms, and we've got 3 women. Looks to be Nanako, looks to be Ayu, looks to be our secret agent lady, but they're dressed a little differently than we've seen before, suggesting maybe this is a different time.
The future is what I was
The future is
thinking.
kind of the implication.
Yeah.
And a group of men approach. And kind of our first hint that this is the future is when we see Rikia. He now has gray hair.
Yes. And they're walking up on them like reservoir dogs.
Yeah. Very with intent. Looks like they might whip out guns and shoot them down. But that's not this movie.
Yeah, this isn't Mr. Pink.
No.
It's not Mr. Purple.
And then Anko is there, and they state that it's been 10 years since they first met Sei. And Rikia immediately refuses, and he's like, no, it's been 27 years.
Yeah.
So now we're getting confusions about our time jump,
They don't
too.
even know what year it is. Yeah.
And they talk about, no, it's 1980 now, and we first met Sei in 1952. And then
I remember this because all these fuckers come out with like cameras and stuff. And then long-haired dude comes out with his...
the cool cameraman is there. Yeah. He's filming them. The dude who is maybe Sei is there, and they're like, no, I never existed. There was no Sei. And then one of the other members is like, well, if the time is the time that you say it is, one of us here should be dead. And then they're filming Anko, and they're like, you're not ready to hear the truth about what's going on. And then one of them sort of notices Nanako just drifting in, and they're like, well, why is she here? Who is she? Mm-hmm. She's not a part of the group. And then, and she's like, well, my daughter brought me here, and I'm Rikia's wife, so, and then they're like, well, what daughter are you talking about? There's no daughter here. And then just like, the daughter, Ayu vanishes.
Yeah.
She's not there anymore.
Right.
So then they're questioning about that, and then she's like, well, no, you said you were Ayu's father. And then Sei's like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And then Rikia finally breaks up this like weird twist, and he says, no, Ayu's real. You have footage of me, touching her.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh yeah, well let's go look at the footage then. So they play back that 16mm tape, and it's this weird, disturbing scene of just Rikia by himself.
Yeah, there's no girl.
Molesting like an invisible,
touching the wall.
Yeah, touching the wall and writhing and moving, and it's that scene again, but just with Ayu like deleted out of it. And weirdly, Nanako is like, no, she's there. I see her. She's right there. Mm-hmm. And they're sort of like, oh, this chick's crazy. And they're like, no, you're just seeing a shadow. There's no girl there. And she's like, no, I know Ayu is real. I'm going to go find her. And she runs off. So then the group's like, well, we got to talk about the death of Anko and see what happens. And Rikia says, it wasn't anything to do with what we're doing. It was an accident. She was jumped by a bunch of hoodlums. They assaulted her for fun, and they got arrested by the cops. Which we see a shot of that. She's in like a weird, like abandoned area, and they run her down into like a trench.
Yeah. And
then it quick cuts to her like laying there naked, presumably dead. Which the group refutes this, and they say, no, that was ordered and orchestrated to happen. And then we cut to Anko being there, whether she's alive or if this is like in the past, which would be the present.
Or someone's imagination.
From the future of where we are now. And she says, no, I was out with 50 of our comrades, and we got chased by the police, and I was left for dead in the chaos. And then Rikia is like, no, I remember finding the dead body. And then we see a little bit of the like Ambassador M incident that they keep referring to. And it's like these two cars, and this is like one of the only moments of action in the film, because they stop,
right?
Both groups get out, and then they just fucking gun each other down.
Yeah, but it's very quick, and it's
super quick. Definitely nothing like Tarantino-esque.
No. It's no Sam Peckinpah.
Quick and dirty. And so they kill these people. They confront Ambassador M. Says, hey, you got to come with us.
Like, no, I don't. Fuck you.
And they take him and try to run away. And then some more jeeps roll up. It's got a different group of revolutionaries, and they're debating about what to do. And some stay behind, some go in pursuit. But they're like, no, Ambassador M is left on a trip. And then they say, well, we're not after him anyways. We're after Ambassador J. So now we've got that conflicting...
Who the fuck is that?
Who is who now? So then we cut to like a press event.
And is it them further in the future?
So this is Ambassador M and his wife. And they're kind of speaking with the public. And it's very like shallow stuff they're asking him. And he's kind of giving these weird like non-answers.
Yeah, they keep telling him to make the V sign.
Yeah, they'll make the peace sign. Yeah. So that makes me think he's like a foreign diplomat of some kind. Because that seems like some weird like media stunt that would happen. And you'll notice that his wife is kind of familiar looking to you. Which makes sense because then she departs and goes off on her own. Returns to the old abandoned hideout. Takes off the wig. And Ambassador M's wife is Anko, still alive, in disguise. And she's like, everyone thought I killed myself, but here I am. Mm-hmm. I refuse to die.
Right.
And then Ricky is like, well, everything's wrong now. We have totally failed. And then she puts back on the disguise, and she says, like, no, keep on going. In 4 or 5 years, we can meet up again. The world then will not maybe be the ideal society that we wanted, but we'll still be alive. We can still do things. We can still try to change the world. Mm-hmm. And then she says, I always knew who the spy was. She admits that she was the lover of Otto and that he was the spy and he was the one that betrayed everybody. which means not too much to us now because we've still never seen Otto.
Yeah, who's this Otto fucker?
He's like, it's like the Waiting for Godot thing. Like, we've never seen this guy.
Right,
Who is he? Nanako and Ayu arrive at this area, and they're looking for what they think is finally Ayu's apartment. And Ayu even mentions that she did live here, and this is where her mother killed her father, which further complicates that angle. Eventually, Ayu runs off, and Nanako kind of pokes into the room, hoping to figure out some more. And when she enters, she's in the abandoned warehouse that we've seen several times. And Ayu's in there, right? And she's naked, and it's like the filmed footage again, but Riki is not there. Mm-hmm. And she when Nanako just kind of covers her eyes like she's in fright and fear of what's going on. And when she takes her hands off and looks again, there's a big gathering, and they have Rikia, and they're fucking questioning him again. And we're back on is he a double agent or not?
Mm-hmm. And possibly a different time zone, time frame. I don't know.
Past, present, future. It's hard to know where we are at this point. Mm-hmm. But Nanako interjects, and she's like, I'm looking for my child. Help me find him. Ayu's father, a.k.a. Sei, is there, and he's like, who are you? Why are you here? We're questioning Rikia. And then she's like, well, I'm his wife. I should be here. I support him. And then Rikia's like, oh, I don't know who she is. Get her out of here. And it kind of seems like he's trying to, like, spare her, maybe,
protect
this
her.
situation. Anko is there as Ambassador M's wife, but she takes the wig off. And she talks about how busy they've been with the revolution. And then Nanako finally talks to the cameraman. Again, he's never identified, but she asks him for some kind of help, and all these guns get drawn. And Anko talks about that when she was 16, she was sold, but it was not to men, it was to the revolution. And then Rikia asks whether her kid was a boy or a girl, the one that she's looking for, a.k.a. Ayu, and then Nanako's like, well, I'm not even sure now.
Right, yeah.
As anyone would say in this moment, because
I'm
what the
right
fuck's
there
going
with
on.
you. I have no idea.
Everyone starts to laugh at her confusion. And then Nanako mentions that maybe it's not that that's what happened, and she starts to think maybe I remember that I was kidnapped when I was 13, and there's a little bit of a hint of like Nanako is Ayu perhaps, or maybe not. But that doesn't really matter because Anko interjects, and she says that a game needs to be played to find out who's qualified to now be the leader of the group. And Rikia suggests, well, hey, let's have a vote. That's democratic, one might say.
Yeah.
And so everyone votes, and they vote for Rikia. And there's a neat thing. You barely notice it because you're so caught up in like trying to keep track of everything. But when you look at the men pointing guns, some of them don't have guns, and they're just like pointing their finger. I thought that was an interesting visual.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the abandoned field, which this is where they had that press conference and a few other shots we've seen. But Rikia is now the leader, apparently, and they're applauding him, and he kind of takes the big center seat in front of everyone, and then he's like, all right, give me the files on my wife. And they take it, and they open it, and they look through there, and there's nothing in there. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, no, that can't be true. Look at 1960, see what I was like then. That's when I was 34. And they flip there, and it's blank. And they keep jumping around, and they keep saying, like, no, it's blank. It's all blank. There is no information about your wife. Mm-hmm. So then they accuse Rikia of being guilty, and that he's deceived them all. And Nanako protests. And Anko questions what the best quality is needed in a leader. And Nanako answers, well, that should be love. And they sort of laugh at her, and they're like, no, the answer is heroism. Stand up and do what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. So they decide that Rikia is guilty, and they're going to hang him.
Oh, yeah, right. Then suddenly there's this gallows there.
Yeah.
Like some January 6th,
Yeah.
traitors built this for Mike Pence or something.
Yes. And it's in the warehouse, and they set him up, they get him up there. And dude, this is like one of the best scenes with Rikia, because he has this like devil-may-care smile.
Yeah.
Like he just gives no fucks at all about what's going on. And they noose him up, and he's never fazed, he's never afraid.
No.
And then he just kind of tells everyone goodbye, and they hang him. And then we cut to the empty lot, And
it doesn't drop either. It's like he raises up.
Yeah. It's not like the platform falls under him. It's
Right,
like
he
it
falls
lifts him.
up. Yeah. But he's also not like choking. It's just like he's just suddenly raised up.
And he still has that same look on his face.
Yeah.
Which is another, like, one of the most, like, horror-ish moments, I think. Because it's just very odd. But obviously, Nanako's upset. She runs off. And when we cut back to the guillotine, it's empty. He's not even there.
Yeah.
So still, we're like, what the fuck's going on now?
Right.
We get back up.
It's saying that a lot, actually.
We get back up with Ayu and Nanako. They're heading home. They go back to, quote-unquote, Ayu's home, which is one of the rooms in the abandoned building. And when they enter it, it's the revolutionary gathering spot where they had met to talk in secret. And none of them are there, but there is a revolver. So Nanako takes that up, as one might do in a crazy moment like this.
Sure.
And they're kind of creeping around because they hear some, like, whispering. And when they poke into one of the side rooms, there is Rikia still alive. And he's on the phone kind of going over plans with, I guess, one of his comrades. And their machinations for the organization. Which is weird and alarming.
Yeah, he's got this big-ass walkie-talkie.
Yeah. It's like the first-gen cell phone or something.
Yeah.
Probably just blasting cancer into his face.
It's like a military radio or something. Yeah.
And so Nanako starts chasing Ayu with the revolver and is like, who is that man? Who's the man on the phone? Is that Rikia? What's going on? And then Ayu says, well, that's my father. That's Atto Hakuji. So allegedly the Atto that was the traitor that seemingly is Rikia, but is.
Right.
Yep. So Nanako takes the gun and goes to shoot him, but when she shoots, the revolver's empty and it just clicks through.
You always got to check that chamber.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, pop it out, check first, confirm you have the shot. So she drops the gun, Ayu picks it up, and she says, we're all going to die soon, but until that comes, let's keep playing the game. And Nanako just starts to scream. And we cut to that long, stretchy hallway again.
Yeah.
And we have three women walking down. It's the older Nanako. It's three women, and it's Anko, still alive, the secret agent, and Ayu. And they're from the other end approaching a procession of the older Rikia and Nanako, and they're in like a press conference thing.
Yeah, those guys are back with the cameras.
And it's clearly like a media thing, because then the three women, even though this isn't like who they are, it's like they're playing a role.
Yeah.
They're acting as reporters.
Suddenly start, yeah.
And they say that Rikia's made the greatest achievements in the last 20 years with all his laser technology.
Still haven't seen one damn laser.
No, we haven't. Nope. Not a beam, not a blast, not a flash, nothing. And in this group also is Sei kind of spying on them, keeping tabs. And they ask things about like Rikia's youth when he was rebelling. They want his opinion on homosexuality, if he likes the ocean. And he says, oh, come on, you're asking me all this crazy stuff. Like, just ask me a question that I could actually answer. And then they say, well, what did you want to be when you were a kid before you went this direction? He says, well, I'd really like to be a film director. And then they want to know what he believes in and what he thinks is like the most important in the world. And he says that he felt that the laser beam was necessary and that he made a thing nobody can see into a visible object. Which I think is interesting in a way that it doesn't really matter to this film, but I think in a broader sense, that's like a commentary on like the act of creating anything, like a film or story or art or of any kind, is you're taking like the invisible, the unknown, the ephemeral, and like capturing that into a form.
Yeah, I like that.
And he says that, after what I did, the next revolution came and it was superior to mine. It was easier than crushing a brand new born baby. And that the life of technology is short now, and there's always a new innovation that trumps the prior.
That's true.
Which for 1970 is pretty prescient.
Yeah.
And very fucking true now, so.
No doubt.
So he goes on to say, from when it is born to maturity and to its death, in a word, it's the only thing that I knew about life. And as he continues to answer these questions, Nanako kind of like falls back behind him. And so there's like, well, at this point in your life and where you are, what's like the ultimate purpose for you? Now that you've made this laser and done all this great stuff. And he kind of stops and he looks back and regards his wife and he says, it's to be the perfect husband. And Nanako kind of turns back to him and nobody's there. She's just in this hallway, fucking alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Jason sweating over there. So we go back and we're with our secret agent again. And she's at that train station and we get another of the shutter scenes of like the shutter opening.
Right.
It's closing this time, isn't it, actually? Yeah. It's closing and it's drowning out that bright white light. And she approaches that bathroom, enters from the other side, and it's kind of like a mirror reverse of what we saw way earlier at the start of the film.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Inside the bathroom, though, we follow her in there this time, and she opens like a little closet that's got like a broom and like some cleaning supplies, and then she gets a suitcase out and enters the bathroom stall. She opens it up, is kind of rummaging through there, and she finds a pipe bomb.
Yeah, I thought it was a lightsaber at first.
You were desperate for a laser at this point,
I
right?
wanted a goddamn laser.
Really wanted that fucking laser. No, it's a pipe bomb.
It's a pipe bomb. She drops it in the toilet.
She drops it in the toilet, and this is maybe connected into their whole machinations of their group, perhaps. So then we go back to, I believe it's Anko at this point. She's walking through the train station, and our sunglasses-wearing cameraman approaches her. Mm-hmm. And he asks why she called for him to come out, and she's like, I never called for you to come out. What's going on? And then we get another one of those blinds opening in the apartment, and it's the filmmaker guy, and there's a woman tied up. Very little context on this. And then we cut back to IU, and it's like a mirror of an earlier scene. I actually skipped it, but there's this one. It's one of the scenes where she's having a tantrum in the apartment, and she gets up and sits on their piano and like plays it with her feet.
That's right, yeah.
We cut back to that moment, and she's like smashing it, and the director's there in the room, and it's like he doesn't even notice her and just like walks out. And so I wondered if this was like a connection to her story about like, you know, dad would tie up mom. It seemed to like mirror that.
Could be
thing. It's funny because I'm saying these things and I'm seeing your eyes as you're like, oh, connections. I watched this way more than any living person should.
Yeah, so. I think you did.
So then IU unties herself and unties the woman. The woman gets up, and then IU says, you know, nobody can kill you, which is a weird comment.
A little bit.
And then we cut back to our secret agent. She walks into a room and asks to an unknown individual what time it is. And she gets an answer that, she doesn't get an answer. And then she just says, well, soon their companions are going to start gathering. Rikia comes in and they start to talk about what's been going on. If you can have any sort of thought about what's going on. And they're basically just saying that, you know, time passes by so rapidly now. And, she starts to undress in front of him. Again, I guess she's tried to seduce him.
Or distract him. I don't know.
One or the other. And she says,
Wake up the audience.
She says, you know, I never passed on that weapon, so the plan never went through. Everybody just must be confused at what's going on. Which maybe the pipe bomb, I guess, that she's alluding to.
Could be.
And she asks Rikia for the weapon, and he doesn't really answer. Kind of just shakes his head, and he starts like playing with her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back to the field. And we have all of our organization members, and they're lined up in front of a fucking firing squad. Yes. And they're getting iced.
They are. Sadly, not by lasers.
Not by lasers, just by your good old assault rifles.
Yeah.
Then we have the agent naked on the bed, and he is kind of like caressing her, comforting her. Seems like he's finally giving in to her. And she makes these odd comments where she says, my God, my nihilism, it's not because I was afraid. And he embraces her and says that he knows the uselessness of it all is overwhelming. And then she says, well, we're never going to see each other again. And then it cuts to the abandoned building with our apartment home of IU, perhaps, and where the conspirators gather. Mm-hmm. And the door opens and it has Anko, and she's approaching Sei. And she reveals that she was actually the traitor. And that she was trying to stop everything. And Sei reveals, well, that's the thing. There never was any spy. And it's all over now. And he says, you've accomplished your task. And then she's like, no, that's not right. You need to go find the man with the bandaged hand at the train station. We're supposed to meet him. And then Ayu appears in the doorway with the revolver, and she raises it and shoots. Mm-hmm. She made sure the bullet was in the chamber.
She checked the chamber this time.
But we don't know who she shot. We never see that. So then we cut to one of those shutters, and we get like the opening visual again. And there's it's like a POV shot of Rikia kind of looking from the ground up.
Yeah. So he's getting crushed almost by them.
Yeah. Kind of has that vibe to it. Then we get some more like quick shots. We see Sei, and he's dead in like a little like alleyway. Mm-hmm. Like he's been gunned down. We see this figure walking away. We don't really get a good look at who it is. I kind of think it looks like Rikia.
That's what
he's in that business suit.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. We get our secret agent lady. She's at the train station. She boards the train to head out of there, and Nanako's waiting for her on the train. Nanako departs. We get that like orchestral, like choiry, eerie music again. And the agent follows her out to see where she's going. Nanako kind of starts to cry. And they walk out to the end of the train station. And they're talking about everything. And the agent's like, well, there's still other things that need to be done. It's not over yet. And what are you going to do? And Nanako says, well, I think I'm going to rid myself of the things that I thought to be my god. And this whole time, the camera's very like tightly focused on them, the two characters, and the background is sort of blurry. And after she says that, it like changes focus. So the characters become blurry, but the background phases in. And we get this sign that's hanging above them, and it says dead end.
Right.
And that's the fucking end of the film, man.
It is indeed.
It is indeed.
Oh boy.
Whew. What a movie. And what a fucking recap. Props to you if you're still listening. I'll say that.
It's
this
is one of those.
Is what it is, man.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about. It's hard to describe.
So let me give you just some more about this like thematic trilogy.
Okay.
This is some food for thought. So this is the second of the three. There's no plot connections. It's all just about political topics. That's their connection. So Eros and Massacre is from 1969. And it's actually kind of like a fictional biography of an anarchist named Sakae Osugi. And he was murdered by the military police in 1923 in something that was called the Amakasu Incident.
Okay.
The other film, Coup d'etat, it's also sometimes titled Martial Law in some other releases, from 1973. It's based on the life of nationalist intellectual Iki Kita, and the account of his attempt to overthrow the Japanese government by a group of army officers, which took place in 1936. So really, as like a trio, they're each looking at a sort of like historical, radical political movement and what happened in the fallout of it. What makes Heroic Purgatory unique is that one, it goes in complete like non-linear storytelling.
Oh yeah. And
two, it looks at like the event, but not like the true account of a person. Unlike the other two, which are kind of almost like biopics in a way. But so I think to some degree, if we're going to start trying to unravel this film, it's important to think about that trilogy, because the context of that is that they have a theme between them. Each focuses on a radicalized character, and I think then the fallout of their idealism and where that leads to. Eros and Coup d'etat both focus on the lives of real historical figures, and I think Heroic Purgatory is more just like a reflection of those student revolts in the 60s, which we need to remember, this film came out in 1970. So that stuff is still pretty raw, pretty fresh. He was making this at a point where there's like no real, like it hasn't been that time yet to have like, here's what the history book hindsight is on this whole event. He's really pulling from like, I fucking lived through this. It happened all around me. Now let's talk about it. To a point even that he also then projects into the future of like, where would the world be in 1980, looking ahead 10 years from this point.
Okay.
And then before I want to get into like a breakdown of anything, just some general thoughts on this. When you talked about like the compositions of the shots,
yes,
I wanted to bring up Carnival of Souls. It also gave me that vibe too.
Okay,
just the like haunting, strangeness, almost alien-like.
Yeah, it's dark black and white. And,
So to get into like explaining this film, I dove into the special features that are on the Blu-ray, So this is released in a box set of the like thematic trilogy. Arrow Academy put it out. That was their label for like artsier films. So this was perfect for it. I think now that's just folded into Arrow Video, but it's all good. So they got a professor of cinema studies and a film critic named David Desser. I don't know if you've ever come across him before.
I'm not.
He gave like an intro to the film, and then he also talked about it a little bit and tried to help break it down. But what I thought was more illuminating was they actually got, I guess they recorded this before his death, but Yoshida himself talked about the film and what it meant to him, which was like super illuminating, I thought. But I'm going to start with Desser and some of his thoughts. So he said there's really like 3 films he thought people should keep in mind when they watch this movie, and maybe if you haven't seen them, check them out as like a companion piece. The first was Nagisa Oshima and his film Night and Fog in Japan in 1960. Now, if you remember, I mentioned this in Kichiku because this also is a film about those sort of communist-leaning protests and political movements.
Right.
And the big theme of Night and Fog is more, I don't know if you've ever seen it or...
I've not.
It's very like, I would say almost documentarian, where it's very really like, here's what's going on, here's the plot points. No bullshit, gets into it, goes through everything. But the real theme of that is kind of the futility of radicalism, and how once you reach a certain point with it, it sort of just like devours itself. And then 2 of the other things he mentioned was the films of Antonioni, which again, Yoshida even name-checked that himself. One of the ones he mentions is maybe a relevant film would be Blow Up, which
inspired Blowout.
Inspired Blowout.
Not long ago.
Kind of that noirness and the paranoia of a conspiracy that's going on. And then he mentioned the film of Alain Resnais, the French director, specifically the movie J'aime, which is about this like time travel experiment to go back into the past and like prevent this suicide. And I think from that there really is like that angle of like the shifting timelines and like past, present, future kind of blending together into the same deal. But curiously, so in these special features, Desser talks about a bunch of the different segments of the film and kind of talks about them. What I think is interesting is he never gives like, this is the answer to the film, which is curious. And then he never even really tries to summarize it all. He calls it like imperceptible almost, which I think is fair.
Yeah, I think so.
And what he kind of concludes on is like, it's a sort of an alternative interpretation perhaps, but he kind of said to consider the fact that like at the core of all of this, regardless of like the plot, regardless of the conspiracy, it's Rikia and his wife Nanako, and that to some degree there is a theme of love in this film. Nanako is almost as much of a main character as Rikia, and like her devotion is very strong. You know, he cheats on her and it's, whatever, I love you, I don't care, I'm sticking by you. I could have been all these different things in my life, but I chose you. You are the life I want to have. When he's under the gun from the organization, she's doing everything she can to kind of absolve him and help him get him out of it. And that's really the through line through it all. Okay. But I'm not satisfied with that myself.
No.
Interesting thought. So let's cut to Yoshida himself talking about the film. And this is where I was really like, okay, all this kind of clicks for me once he explained his thoughts about it. So he did talk about the fact that, you know, he lived through that time. He saw all this, experienced all of this. He talked a little bit about just like how it started, and, you know, it's like, here's this other idea, the other way of living. He talks about like, you know, it all started with the Korean War, and that in Japan, much like everywhere else around the world, it sort of split everyone into 2. And there was those that kind of embraced the ideas of communism, and then those that opposed it. And then he talks about how like it started from that point, and the further things went, the more each side became more radicalized, more extreme, more paranoid. And he kind of tried to encapsulate that feeling into this film, that like when you get into that and you become more and more radicalized, one of the things he highlighted is that eventually when you follow that road, the only way it can go down to is like armed intervention. Eventually you have to pick up a weapon, you have to fight, you have to do something to change the world, to make it right in your eyes. And sort of like his thesis statement for this film is that when you follow that path, when you become radicalized, when you pursue armed intervention, all that can do is like repeat that cycle. Because whatever you do, that's going to instigate someone else, which then radicalizes them, which then sets them on that path to leads them up to armed intervention. And then it's kind of just like an Ouroboros at that point, the snake eating its tail.
Right.
It's a loop that never ends and just perpetuates itself. And what he said he really liked the idea of like very avant-garde cinema that's absurdist and kind of, you know, the story itself doesn't matter as much as like the metaphors, the ideas, the meaning, tone poem, as you like to say often.
I do.
And so that's what he wanted. When you watch this film, he wanted you to feel that feeling, that paranoia, the insanity. Nothing makes sense and it never will make sense. There's traitors, people, this person's the spy, that person's the spy. We're doing this plan failed, these other people are doing that plan. Well, now it's this, now it's that. Forwards in the future, back into the past, any which way you go, it's all the same and it never matters because you're just in that looping cycle that perpetuates. And kind of his end conclusion on that is that it's all futile. It all is just this endless cycle that never really perpetuates and it never creates, it never like births or brings forth anything important into the world. It's very self-serving, very like the film itself concludes with the sign, it's a dead end. That no matter where you pursue, where you go, you're always just going to come back to that point.
Okay. Yeah.
And through the film and its different directions, timelines, and sort of like overlapping plots that don't go anywhere, in watching it, he wants to like give you that feeling and that experience.
Okay. I could see that. That makes a little bit more sense.
So I hope that maybe it doesn't answer anything.
No.
And I think the key thing is that there is no answer, and that is to some degree the point.
Right. Which I don't have a problem with, generally speaking.
Cool. But now we should get into our final thoughts, I think. I think we spent enough time on this.
Yes. Well, you chose the movie, you brought
I
it
did.
to us, so you give us your thoughts.
So when I first watched this, I bought the box set. Of course, as everyone knows, I am a collector, and that's what I do. And if it's a Japanese film and it's put out by a boutique label, I'm probably going to buy it.
He's probably going to buy it.
Sight unseen, as I did with this. And I knew nothing about Yoshida or anything, and I was like, let's just go through these. The other two films are great. They're fun. They're well made. But this one, man, the first time I watched it, I was just like, what the fuck is this movie?
Right. And
then I watched all of Desser's essays, and I was like, this fucking critic doesn't know what's up about it either. And I kind of like, I didn't even talk to you and Michael about it really. I just sort of like ruminated on it by myself, and I was like, well, it was kind of neat. It was kind of Lynchian. I don't know what the fuck's up with it. And then it was like every few months I would go back to it and like watch it another time and be like, are there pieces that I'm missing? Is there something else? And then I finally decided to watch Yoshida's like commentary on it. And then that like helped me piece the puzzle a little bit. And then I was like, no, this is like cool. It's really, really art house, really avant-garde, over the top, super absurdist, super surreal, all the shit I love. And it's just like, as a cinema fan, it's like a feast. The score is incredible. The cinematography, the composition's incredible. The editing is incredible. And I just like every element when you isolate it. I love it so much. I think it's so cool. Again, Ichi Yanagi, his soundtrack, it's just insane. I love how haunting it is, how powerful it is. And so I think you and I sometimes talk about like a puzzle box film, right? It's a film that exists and it's just like to piece it apart and figure out what's going on.
Right.
That's ascribed often to David Lynch, which we keep bringing up here.
Yeah.
And so I think with Heroic Purgatory, it's like the unsolvable puzzle box. When you open it up and try to get in there and say, let me get all the pieces, and I'm going to find the truth. What you find is the truth is smashed up, and it gets filtered into infinity through several different timelines, the past, the present, the future. And some of it is because you're in the present, looking at the future, but trying to talk about the past. And so, like, everything is filtered, and nothing is as objective as it could be. And so, like, it kind of just puts you in this wild emotional state along with the film of like, you're both lost, you're oppressed almost in the way that some of the characters are. You want to find an answer because I think that's just a natural thing, right? If you're watching a film, you want to understand what is going on and piece together like what's, you know, the plot, what's going on, what's the ending, what's the answer. But there is no answer here. And it pulls you in, and it takes you on that journey. But I think in the end, all you're going to get out of it is whatever you yourself can pull out. And ideas you like, themes you like. And even when I watch it now, it almost feels like it's like the experience of watching this film is kind of this almost like trance-like state. Like you just sort of, to me, I just sort of like zone out and go into the flow of it and feel like I'm just kind of on this 2-hour journey that's super captivating, super brilliant. And it's just like very intoxicating, very enthralling, fucking 5-star film for me. I love it.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
Now bring us down. Bring us back down a little.
All right.
From my heady, artsy, fartsy world.
It is artsy fartsy. It's very artsy fartsy.
This is the most artsy fartsy I think I've gone in the show. Yeah.
It is by far.
And this was the one I was keeping back pocket. I really wanted Michael to watch this one.
Oh, God.
I know he would have hated it.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what he would have said about it. But
he would have hated it.
We'll have to
he would have said it's up its own ass.
I'm sure.
Boring. And I don't exactly disagree with him. Okay, first of all, it is a beautiful movie. Now, every frame is beautifully put together. It's gorgeous. I love the compositions. I love the handheld camera work. The score is great, as you mentioned before. The actors are good. The characters are intriguing. But to me, there's not enough story. There's not enough plot. I mean, because it really does just... It took me a while to get this movie watched. I'll be honest with you. It just I got very bored, and I don't think I'm like a cinema illiterate person,
right?
You know, I like artsy movies. I like highbrow movies, but this one just
step too far.
Yeah. It just didn't work for me. There was not enough story there or enough weirdness to compensate for the lack of story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a Lynch movie can be. Because honestly, sometimes I don't care about his stories either. But there's always something interesting going on visually. Or whatever.
And that's the thing I would say about this film. Like, it is on the Arrow player, we said. Check it out. See what you think. If you're really captivated by it, you'll probably dig it. Go through it. But if you're sitting there at like the 30-minute mark and you're just like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, go ahead and stop.
It's probably not the movie for you. And that's actually okay. We talk about this a lot. Like, not everything has to be made for every person.
Yeah.
You find the things you love and celebrate it,
but also I also felt kind of cheated because that first half hour I was super excited, like those opening shots. I was like, oh fuck, this looks amazing, but then just like nothing happens, you know, and it just got a little bit too much for me.
Okay, that's fair.
At the end of the day, I'll give it 2.5 stars.
Woo!
Just for the fucking cinematography.
Ooh, wow,
you know,
killer.
So
let me ask you this. Knowing like Yoshida's take on it, how does that affect your feeling at all?
I always get bothered by that because you should be able to watch a movie by itself and still get something from it.
Okay.
You know, you shouldn't need an explanation from the director. I mean, sometimes it helps and it gives you a new way to look at it. It gives it some depth. But at the same time, if I'm not getting enjoyment from watching it, sans any critic or director input, I think it's failed as a piece of art. You know, you've got to feel something. You know, it has to engage you. And I tried. Oh my God, I tried. I really did. I swear to God, I did. But it didn't work for me.
Okay. Very strange, very compelling film with 2 wildly different takes. Check it out for yourself. See where you land. If you dig the style, but not so much the execution, maybe look into some of Yoshida's other stuff. I think there are connecting points, but I would say like this trilogy, the other 2 parts are much more like traditionally plotted and paced.
Okay. Of
like an ABC story.
But you don't like those as much.
They're still good.
Okay.
Just this is the weird one that I fucking dig. So,
nice.
That brings us to the end on Heroic Purgatory. If you've seen this, or if our musings have spurned you to go watch it, definitely write in. Let us know what you think. Would love to hear other impressions, other takes, other thoughts, feelings, whether they're positive or negative. But we got to go somewhere else. And I think 2 things. I think we need to step away from the artsy, get back into the muck a little bit. And I think we're done for right now with the 1960s Japanese political movements, right? I think we can close that book until we want to do like Oshima or something.
Sure.
Go back to that maybe in a few years.
Yeah,
at best.
We'll circle around back to that eventually. Now, we have a movie picked up, but I'm concerned it's going to be difficult to find a place to watch it. So I was just doing some quick research, and it is not streaming anywhere. There is a version on YouTube.
Hey, that's all you got.
I'm worried it's not. I'm worried it's cut.
You're worried it's cut.
Because the runtime doesn't match
You're
up.
telling me that a listener-submitted episode from a film of 2004, there does not exist a version in existence that we could watch?
Not streaming.
Wow. What a sad state of affairs.
But I know a couple of months ago it was.
You know what? Let's forge ahead, and we will see what happens. We will make it work, as we often do.
Okay.
So what are we checking out? This is a listener suggestion.
Yes, we are going to watch, and I'm not exactly sure the listener was serious about this, but...
Well, we have often solicited a troll suggestion. So.
I think so, yes, that's true. A movie called Scarecrow Gone Wild.
Directed by Brian Katkin. You may know him from other films like Slaughter Studios and Hard as Nails and If I Die Before I Wake.
So this actually is a director that is his name. This isn't a pseudonym for David Dakota, right?
I don't know.
Because I scanned through a bit of this movie and it looks very David Dakota-ish.
So the poster, we've got like a boardwalk beach. We got a sexy chick in a bikini, and we got what looks like maybe like a great value version of the wrestler Kane, perhaps, with a knife.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be a scarecrow.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to go from the highbrow artsy-fartsy down to the gutter.
Let's do it. Let's slum it up a little bit.
Dude, I love this shit.
Yeah.
You know I do.
What, is this a franchise or...
I think there may have been a sequel.
Okay. Well, I guess let us take the time to do the research and we'll come back next time.
Scarecrow Gone Wilder? I don't know.
We'll see. Scarecrow, probably going to be sleazy, I hope.
God, I hope so. It better be.
Look forward to that. And send us more fun suggestions. Send us weird stuff. Troll us. Send us a weird thing that you think would be like, why would we watch this, and make us watch it. Yeah. I've awaited the day to have us watch a rom-com.
No, fuck that.
And Jason just writhe in agony the entire time.
Fuck that. Put my foot down on that.
You can do it. You can send it in, and eventually we'll run out of other options. It can happen. Wish it, want it, make it manifest.
No.
And you can do that by reaching out to us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. You can email us at genreexposure@gmail.com. We'll take anything. Your film suggestions, your comments, your questions, your concerns. Or tell us what you've been up to, man. How you doing?
Yeah.
How are you doing right now in life?
How are you doing?
Are you good?
Yeah.
We hope you're doing good. We really do.
We really do, honestly.
And we hope you're living life, loving life, enjoying some movies. But otherwise, you have been listening to Genre Exposure.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Take some extra care after this one.
Yes, please do.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.